Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dani, and it's great to be with you today in this format, I guess. If you haven't been with us, this is our third video out of 4 as kind of follow-up videos from Advanced Sunday. So we had Advanced Sunday about 4 weeks ago, I think it was, and the idea of it was to refocus us, to make sure we are moving forward, advancing the gospel of Jesus Christ, and advancing in a sense our faith as individuals and moving forward as a church as we keep kind of kicking goals as a church as well. And so it was meant to ensure that we don't get stagnant, that we don't get comfortable and kind of lose sight of what Jesus calls us to do. But what we didn't want it to be is just to be a Sunday. And so the 4 things that we got out of there in order for us to advance, which was to grow and to reach and to serve and to give, we're going to do 4 little weeks of videos to make sure we bed those truths down and give a bit more detail to them. So I'm doing the third of that. So what I'm going to give you today is 3 essential ingredients to serving. And where I want to start is this. So this is the first ingredient that's essential to serving, and it's this: we need to be served before we serve. Be served before serving, and we get this from John 13 verse 3. Have a listen to this. This is the famous passage where Jesus washes his disciples' feet. John 13 verse 3. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given him all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments and, taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." And Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." And so Simon Peter responds and he said, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." So we've got Jesus who wants to wash Peter's feet, but he refuses to, and in some sense it seems rightly so. Here is God in the flesh, on his knees, wanting to wash Peter's feet. How dare you wash my feet, Jesus? We need to swap places here. I need to be washing your feet, is probably what's going on in Peter's mind. And even though all those things are true about Jesus being the Son of God, Jesus insists. He insists that he washes Peter's feet. And saying to Peter, "You might not understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand it later." And Peter still pushes back. He says, "You will never wash my feet, Jesus." And Jesus' answer makes our point so clear. And in fact, it's his point. It's not my point. He says, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Now notice Jesus isn't talking about washing Peter's feet anymore. He's just talking about washing him. And what Jesus is starting to do is starting to make clear what he just told Peter he might not understand yet. And why will Peter not understand this yet? Well, it's because Jesus hasn't died yet. That's Jesus' ultimate act of service, his ultimate act of servanthood. On the cross, he served us by paying the penalty for our sin, that we might be guilt-free. One of the most powerful ways that this is depicted in the Bible is Jesus' blood washing us clean. Now, blood doesn't naturally wash clean, does it? It stains. That's what it does naturally. But Jesus' blood did something supernaturally for us by making us white as snow. freeing us of all of our filth before our Father. And so before we think of serving Jesus, we need to let him serve us in this way. Not just once, but over and over and over again, because we are continuing to sin. I know we're not trying to do that necessarily intentionally, but we know that we'll only be perfect when we get to heaven. So as we continue to live our lives, as Tony was saying a couple of weeks ago, we need to continue to repent and believe and let Jesus serve us in this way over and over again. So we shouldn't be afraid in the mornings to get up before anyone is awake yet, grab a coffee or a cup of tea, grab our Bible, open it up and say to Jesus, Jesus, serve me now. Please serve me. Take your word and minister it to me. May I see again how you have served me. May the truths of your death on the cross impact me afresh. See, that's what we want to do over and over again. And there's a great story of something like that actually in Luke chapter 10. You'll know this, where Jesus is welcomed into Martha's house, and Martha frantically starts serving Jesus and all these people that are sitting around at his feet listening to his teaching. And Martha's sister Mary is one of these that's sitting at Jesus' feet listening to his teaching. And you know what? Martha was a bit annoyed at Mary for doing this, that she would just sit there. Jesus, she's just sitting. She's just listening. She's not doing anything when I'm over here anxious and frantic and trying to serve you. And Jesus says to Martha, Mary has made the better choice between the two options. She has made the right choice. She made the right decision to sit at my feet so that I can serve her before she starts thinking about serving me. You see, we need to be served before we serve. Jesus says if he doesn't wash us, we have no share with him. And so we will not be serving him. We might be helping around at church or wherever it may be, but we will not belong to him, and ultimately our efforts will come to nothing. So that's our first essential ingredient to serving. Be served before we serve. The second one is this: be good stewards in serving. We get this from 1 Peter 4 verse 10, and I'm going to be looking at that next week, but I'll just give you a snippet of it now. 1 Peter 4 verse 10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. See, what we see here is that every Christian has received a gift from God. Everyone, bar none. All of us have received an ability given to us freely by God to build up his church. Now, there are different gifts, right? We understand that. Various free gifts that God has lavished upon us through Jesus, upon his people. We're not all musicians. We're not all teachers. We all don't have great voices. We're not all of us love kids in the same way as some of us do. None of us are sound experts, or and the list goes on and on. There are various gifts. But whatever gifts we have, we must use it to serve one another. If you don't use your gifts toward others to build up the church, you are a bad steward of God's grace to you. Now, what is a steward? Well, I think a good place to go to is the parable of the minas in Luke 19 to help us think about what a steward is. There's kind of another one, I think, in Matthew as well, the parable of the talents. But here in Luke 19, a rich man leaves some of his money with some stewards as he goes away to get another kingdom. And when he gets back, would you believe it, he expects to get more money from these stewards than what he gave them in the first place when he left. And you kind of think, why is that? And the reality is because that's what stewards do. Okay, they are given something and they are obligated to use it to further or to expand or to grow the business or the kingdom of their master. And so, dear Christian, when God gave you a beautiful voice or a heart for kids or an ability to take complex truth and make it simple, or to pray wonderfully and lead people in that so that they might engage with you, or gave you the ability to play an instrument, or whatever it may be, He gave it to you to further His kingdom. Right? He gave it to you to grow His church as you use your gifts. And so to not serve in church is not simply to withhold our gifts and our abilities from people, but it's actually to refuse to use what God has given us to use for His glory. So it's far, far worse than maybe we might think at times. And the interesting thing about that parable in Luke 19 is actually those who have more will be given. So you almost have this idea that as we use our gifts and our abilities, God will continue to grow us in them as we seek to honor and glorify Him. And for those who have even a little bit and decide to hold it back and not share it and not try and grow God's kingdom, it'll diminish to the point where there's nothing left. So let's not be bad stewards, but good stewards as we serve the church with our gifts. That's our second essential ingredient to serving. And then the last one, third and last one, is this: be blessed as you serve. See, serving is not a begrudging thing that we do without any joy. It's a blessing. So let's be blessed as we serve. And we see this in John 13, verse 14 to 17. So we're going back to Jesus washing of His disciples' feet, and He explains a bit more of what He was doing afterwards. So listen to verse 14. Jesus says, "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him." And listen to this: if you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. You see, serving as Jesus served will be a blessing to you. It'll be a blessing to me, and I'm sure many of us have experienced that. Now at first it doesn't make sense, does it? All around us we're being told to do less and have people do more to us, and that's the way you live a blessed life. All around us we're being told that receiving and maybe even taking from people is the blessed life, not giving. All around us we're being told to have our main focus to get to the top, where we can use our positions of power to our own advantage. But not with Jesus. He says that you will be blessed as you take lowly positions of service to do good to others. And Jesus is the ultimate example of that. And He puts it this way in Matthew 20, verse 26. He says, "Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave." Why? "Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve." You see, what Jesus does is He redefines greatness. True greatness. Greatness in the sight of the greatest being in existence, God Himself, is to serve others and to sacrifice for them. And so that means as you serve, you can be truly great. As you serve, you can be truly blessed, and you don't want to miss out on that. It is a gift, it's a gracious thing that Jesus gives us as we serve Him with the grace that He's given us as good stewards for His glory. So there are 3 essential ingredients for you, church, for you to serve Jesus well here at GBC or wherever you might be. So what can you do next? Well, I hope if you're serving at our church that these truths will minister to you, that you'll be blessed by it. And for you, if you're part of our church and you're not serving, maybe because you're quite new, maybe because you haven't really thought that the church needs you, that's often a thing that people think, right? They think that all of our positions, if you like, are filled. Nowhere there are any needs. Well, let me tell you what, we always need people to serve. And God needs you to serve. He's gifted you to serve. So what can you do? Well, there's a link to an online serving form in the description of this video at the bottom. So you can click on there, or in the email that you would have received this video in, there'll be a button there that you can click. So fill that in. There's some different teams and ministries that you can tick that you might be interested in. And you and I can catch up for a coffee. I'd love to sit down and talk to you about how you can serve in our church. So fill that in. We'd love to hear from you. That would be a good start. And particularly at this stage, we need people in our kids ministry and with our communion. With our kids ministry, Annette was just telling me last Sunday that they had 17 kids in the 2 to 4-year-old class with 3 helpers. And there was meant to be 4. But anyway, even if there was 4, that's 4 leaders and 17 young kids. My wife and I, we've got 2 kids. And when both of us are there with 2 kids, already hard. So, there's a need. And then we've got Pip and Josh who's moving to Mandra. She was involved in kids ministry. We're always looking for people to help. So please come and help us. Come and serve with us. And then communion, we need some people to help prepare the elements and set things up. And then people also to hand it out. But there are lots of things in that form. So please click on the form, look at those teams, pray through it, especially in light of what you've heard today. And then fill it in and we can catch up. So let us know how you'd like to serve Jesus as a good steward of the grace that you've received from him at GBC. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.